Hello here. How the heck you doing this fine day? And welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I am some kind of glad that you're joining us today. Also glad you're joining us today. April, looks like we called each other to say we're wearing our basic black today.
Oh, mine's navy, but yes, we are.
I can't tell. It's kind of black on the screen.
I'm always black, navy, gray. I don't know. So I really need to get more color. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I am doing, well, reasonably good. You know, I think all of us are kind of just in massive struggle mode as we just kind of come to terms with what the winter is going to look like. But I'm excited about today because everybody always gets excited when we talk about Evernote, do they not? It's like they do. It's so we've got a great turnout of people. So welcome everybody. We've got a great webinar planned for you today. Any newcomers, anybody who is here for the first time with us for Webinar Wednesday, welcome. Let me fill you in on what we are planning today and what happens here each week. Every week here at Dottotech, almost every week, we deliver one of these free tutorial webinars called Webinar Wednesday. And they cover their training webinars. They usually aren't sales webinars of any sort, but they cover a variety of different topics. Productivity, content creation, and online marketing are the main topics that we like to cover here on the channel. And so we rotate through those. And you're more than welcome to join us for free any week for the webinar. Now, what the deal is, we deliver these webinars free without any encumbrances whatsoever. You can watch them, and you can watch the replay for free for a week afterwards. But then, after we've had this up for a week, we take the webinar down and we store it in our Webinar Wednesday archives, where it is there for the use of our patrons, who I'm going to do a great big shout out to. We deliver all this content for free, and the reason that we can do it is we are wonderfully supported by our community on Patreon. Dottotech is a crowd-funded channel. So I know many of you are here with us right now, so a great big shout out and hello to all of our patrons. If you want to find out what it's involved in being a patron of Dottotech, or if you're willing to sign up and support us, I encourage you to drop by patreon.com/Dottotech, and there you can see we ask for $10 a month, and in return you get access to all of our Webinar Wednesday archives, of which this is our 151st Webinar Wednesday, so 151 of these webinars in the kitty so far, as well as some other perks that are included as well. One of the biggest perks used to be that you would get a hug from me if you saw me at an event, but that seems to be a useless perk these days, does it not? That's if you wanted a hug, because we aren't going to events, and if we are at events, we certainly aren't hugging strangers or even patrons. So there, I see Holly saying that it's my humor is worth every penny, apparently. So that's good to hear.
You know, it's funny when you were talking about 151 actually after last week's webinar. Do you remember what we did? We looked at our first one.
Oh, geez, we did. We should replay part of that sometime.
Yeah.
When we do a webinar talking about webinars and talk about live streaming and all the things that we've learned from delivering all of these webinars, I think we'll do that. We'll share what our first webinar looked like and how far it's come. So the content today is we're going to be talking about Evernote, of course. Now, typically speaking, when we deliver these webinars, we do a style called a hybrid webinar, where I have pre-recorded the demo, and I have pre-recorded my views and my take on Evernote 10, Evernote version 10, the update. So we'll be rolling that in just a few moments. While that's rolling, April and I will stay with you in chat, answer questions. And once we are all said and done with that video playing, we will return and we will do a Q&A for the remainder of the hour. And the video itself is about 20 minutes long. So that is the plan. But before we go on, we also have one other group that we'd like to identify and thank, and we are now a sponsored show. We're being brought to you through the generosity of our friends at Restream.io. Restream.io. Now, Restream is the service that we use, is the tool that we use to multicast our program here. It is for live streamers, and if you're a Twitch streamer, if you're a YouTube liver, if you're a Facebook liver, an Instagram liver, or you like to do a combination of all of them, Restream is a platform that allows you to stream once and then distribute that stream to many, many different platforms. So right now we're live on two. We're live on Facebook and we're live on YouTube. And we're actually using the Restream Studio right here in order to broadcast, which gives us the facility to be able to insert our video, insert all of our graphics, manage if we have guests on. It handles all of the back end for us, and we are thrilled to be working with them. It also manages the chat for us. So Restream.io is the sponsor of this particular episode. If you are interested in getting into doing any form of live streaming, April will drop the link in both of the chats to make sure that you can drop by and have a look at Restream. We are more than happy with how it performs for us, and I think most of you are as well. Since we've had it, it's been almost bulletproof. We haven't had any issues as we've been streaming. Holy jumping. April, look how many people are watching.
Out loud.
Sorry?
You're not supposed to say stuff like that out loud.
Yeah, because it's tempting fate. But look at this. We got 634 people online with us.
I know, it's awesome. It's awesome.
That's a big turnout. That's good. Well, welcome. And so the chat's going to be blazing by as it has been. So we haven't been able to probably respond quite as much as we'd like, but we will get to your questions once we're done with video. So I think we don't like to waste too much time in the preamble because we know people have busy lives, and you're all wondering about what's the deal with the new version of Evernote. Are you not? Have you had a look at it yet, April? You haven't had a look at it, have you?
Well, I think you already know the answer to that.
Yeah, the answer is no. Oh, Steve Whitley's asking, where is Farley's bed? My daughter is here. My daughter is now the Dr. Dotto. She's a university professor now, but she was visiting from Toronto when the epidemic kind of came full force in Canada. So she is staying. She's a freeloader in the house right now, and Farley likes hanging out with Stephanie a lot. And she didn't like him. He was taking too much room on the couch, so she stole the bed so he could lay down on the bed beside her.
Oh, sorry? That's funny. Does Stephanie have Maisie? Or no, that's
Emma. Emma's my other daughter. She has Maisie, which is the dog that was visiting earlier this week. So yes, so we're dog people here in the household. But Farley might wander up when he hears me talking. He might wander up and poke me a little bit, but but he's still around, so don't worry. Thanks for the concern. All right. Let us jump in. Let's take a look. So I know that a lot of people aren't overly thrilled with Evernote 10. Some people are. I'm in the camp that I'm pretty happy with the way it came together. Let's take a look at it and have a look and see. And then while this video is running, we will be in chat, and then we'll come on the other side and we will talk to you more about the world of Evernote, as Evernote has now finally upgraded to Evernote version 10. Finally, Evernote 10 is here. And let's start with the 800-pound gorilla talking about this update. If we are looking for a feature update of Evernote, the fact that we've got a whole new version number, a lot of people were looking for all sorts of really wonderful new features to be built into Evernote. And those people are somewhat disappointed with Evernote 10 because Evernote 10 does have some new functions, some new features, but not a lot, and certainly not enough to justify a brand new version and all of the hoopla around Evernote. But Evernote 10 is a major upgrade because of one thing. Evernote had to unify their code base. They actually had a Herculean task facing them because previously every version of Evernote had its own source code, had its own base code. So they had one for Android, they had one for Apple, they had one for iOS, they had one for the web, they had one for Windows. They had all of these different code bases. And we would see this constant leapfrogging of Evernote features and interface as new versions were constantly released. And there wasn't a unified user interface, even on the desktop versions. The Windows and the Mac version did things differently, which would drive me crazy because it should all work the exact same. But they didn't have a unified code base, so consequently they MacGyvered their own things. They would make this work, and one would have an advantage in this space, and then they'd have to catch up, and it would break things in the back end because the Mac version did have to sync with the Windows version, so now they had to make all of those things work. So they had this massive
task that they had to do, which is they had to build a unified code base that they could all work from. Now, what does that give us? It gives us a foundation. It gives us, it's like a house with a bad foundation, all of a sudden upgrading the foundation so it's solid. It gives you a solid footings to build all of the applications on top of. And the benefit is now the applications can be not just unified as far as the data structure underneath, but we can start to come to a unified user interface so that they look the same and they act the same because everything works the same. Syncing is going to work the same in Windows and in Mac and in iOS and in Android. And so is note tagging. And all of these different processes that Evernote relies on are now unified. So they've released this unified code base. Now, have they done a good job on it? I don't know. Neither do you. It's not something that we will ever really be able to see ourselves because it's all kind of the underpinnings. But that's where we are. That is the major upgrade. And it's like a big sigh of relief that they were able to do this because now we have room to grow. So that's number one. They've got this unified code base under the hood. So let's now dive in and take a look at some of the things that we can evaluate in the new upgrade, some of the exciting things, the things that happen in user interface. Now, I'm going to be showing this to you on the Mac, but it's identical now in Windows. It will look the same and it's identical on the web. So you actually can't even tell. I'm showing you right now. This is the web version. We'll jump over in a moment into the desktop version and you'll see that it's identical. But what I'm going to cover is we've already talked about what happens under the hood. We'll talk about the new features. We'll talk about one unintended upgrade, at least I call it an unintended upgrade, which is a lot of fun, which is how it works with the iPad Pro. We're going to talk about the things that have been taken away. We're going to say goodbye to some different features that some people are upset about, and some of the things that they should not mess with, and some really exciting additional things that made me go, oh my, I like that. So we've talked about under the hood. We've talked about the syncing features. Let's now talk about what they rolled out as their new features, which include primarily a new note editor. Now, this new editor, which is what we see right here, is let's jump over into the desktop version so we can see it here. So you see it right here. This new note editor has a standard formatting bar, which we have access to, that has access to all of the formatting. It's still not as robust a formatting note taker as is, say, OneNote, but it's far better than it used to be. And they've taken something away from us. They've taken away the ability to decide what fonts we use. They only have one standard font now within it, and we can choose to apply different settings to the font, making it normal text, large header, to the font, to the text if we want to create some nice formatting. It makes it cleaner and it makes it consistent across all platforms. Yes, it does take away some fancy formatting, but it does give us a baseline for consistency across all platforms. And you've got quite a bit of functionality within here. They've got, of course, the ability for us to create numbered lists, etc. You can choose any bit of text in it, and you can change the color of that text very easily. You can add a highlight color if you want to it, quite easily and simply as well. So you've got some nice basic formatting features for a notepad application. Remember, this is a notepad application. This isn't a page layout program or an HTML editor. This is for taking and retaining notes. That's what Evernote really is. And so you've got basic formatting that you have available to you there. So that is all available through this now standardized bar across the top. Now, there is a new note invocation tool. So when we click on new note, we can click here, which will give us a new blank note. But Evernote is beefing up the importance of their templates. Now, these are user definable, but they have some standard templates that they have here available to us for making different types of notes. And these templates, you can actually create your own templates over and above this, or you can use any of their notes as well. So you can quickly choose, if you want to have a weekly planner, to choose to create a new document with the weekly planner interface. So all these templates are now readily available. Now, once you have your note, they have a new insert menu here on the upper right-hand side that allows you to insert different assets into your note. So you can insert a table, which I'll show you in a moment, dividers, attachments, in different types of documents and different types of data type. And we'll talk in a moment about the checkboxes as well. But the most exciting one, the one that makes me go, oh my, is this data type down here. Do you see this? This makes me so happy. You can just grab a YouTube video,
drop the URL right in here, and it resolves the video so you can have a video play right within an Evernote note, which opens up so many different opportunities. You know that you can share your Evernote notes over the web. You can use them as a shared document. So now you can actually embed videos in those documents. So you can create tutorial pieces, training pieces that you can share using Evernote as a publishing platform. Now, we've done this a lot at Dottotech for different projects. In fact, we delivered our original course, Evernote Made Easy, completely as shared Evernote notes, but now I could have actually put the videos right within it. So forgive me if I fanboy a little bit. I have been waiting for this for 10 years. I have been waiting for this for 10 years. So that is there now. But that's that. That's me. I don't know if everybody else gets that excited about it. Let's take a look at some of the other features here. Let me just put in an insertion point here, and let's add a table here so we can see some of the better formatting options that we have for things like tables. So you can put in a table here, and we can, let's insert a couple of rows and a couple of columns there. So we have a nice table. So now you can select your, you can select either multiple columns or multiple cells in it. And you have this pop-up menu that allows you to shade them so you can do formatting in either direction, either individual cells or across. So you've got some nice additional formatting. Again, making your notes look that much more appealing. That's all been built in. Next thing I want to show you now, though, is checkboxes and checklists. And I think Evernote is trying to add some functionality to Evernote to push it closer into the task and to-do list area, which I personally don't like using it as. I like to use it as an information vacuum, as my data repository, but I prefer to use Asana or Todoist or one of those tools as my task and to-do list manager. But everybody's not the same, and there are some things that we want to be composing within Evernote that we want to have some task-like options to apply to. So we've always been able to do this. We've always been able to take a list and create, I'll just quickly create, we've always been able to take a list like this and be able to create, of course, we can create using these tools over here. We can create things like a numbered list here. We can create a checklist as well by choosing the checks. Now, what happens then is this becomes a checklist, a classic checklist, which is very useful to have in Evernote that you can go through and watch what happens. Whenever you select anything, you check off that and you see how it crosses it off. So that's a classic checklist. Check this off and it's crossed out. It's been taken care of. But they also have something called check boxes now. And check boxes are entirely different. Let me show you. Okay, I've got a couple of lines of text here. I'm going to take the second one and I'm going to go back to the insert menu and I'm going to add a check box to it. And watch what happens here. See how a checklist I turn on or off. It's crossed out or crossed on. Check boxes X out or go blank. So check boxes you can turn on and off within the column. So you can add as many check boxes as you want. Now, it is a little bit of a kludgy interface, I have to admit. If I have if I have a checkbox and then I just hit return, it turns it into a checklist. So what has to happen is you actually have to demark each checkbox individually if you want to have it on or off. But depending on what your process is, what your project process is, you might choose to have classic checkboxes, checklists, excuse me, or you might choose to have check boxes on individual items. And this could also be put right at the head. We can add it to the header. So let's add a checkbox there. And so you can kind of have everything underneath it being checked off if we choose to do it that way. So I kind of like the way that checkboxes work, but I know they're going to add a little bit of consternation to some people because they can be a little bit confusing. Okay, now let's talk about the unintended upgrade that I teased you with at the beginning, and that is using Evernote on our mobile devices, and more specifically in this particular case, it is on the iPad Pro using the Apple Pencil. And the unintended consequence, or the unintended upgrade, now, and I don't know if it was really unintended, Evernote probably knew well that this was coming, is Apple in their latest version of iOS has added something called Scribble to the iOS, to the operating system. And Scribble carries through into Evernote and every application for that matter. But in Evernote, it really
it really sweetens the pot, and it turns Evernote, for the first time, in my opinion, into a viable notepad tool using the Apple Pen on the iPad. Allow me to show you that. Okay, now I've got my iPad here open up, and let me open up Evernote, and here's the exact same note that we have just been working on in Evernote, and you can see all of the work that I've done. I'm going to show you Scribble right away, and then I'll take you into the iPad OS and show you exactly how you invoke it within the iPad OS. And if you don't have an iPad, this actually might make you want one. So first of all, another feature built into the new version of Evernote is now dark mode, which is how I'm running it on my iPad, and I do like to run it in dark mode on my iPad. Now I'm taking my pen, and I'm going to tap, and you will see on the screen here when I tap, you'll see an insertion point appear. You see how an insertion point there appears within the text? And I'm going to start writing, and I'm just going to write something on the screen. And it doesn't matter where I write it. Oh, actually it does. Sorry, I shouldn't have got there. On the, let me put the insertion point back there. Screen. Did it catch that? Yeah, it did. So, even with my chicken scratch handwriting, the handwriting recognition is working. Now, this isn't something that Evernote has done exceptionally well. This is something that Apple did exceptionally well by adding this. But this ability now to be able to write on the screen in using this tool called Scribble that's built into the operating system has turned Evernote from a keyboard, really just a keyboard notepad tool, into one which the stylus works exceptionally well in. And actually, if you look down here in the very bottom of the screen, you can see over here on the right, on the left-hand side, you can see the Scribble pen that's available to me there. Now, if I just tap with my finger, I can return and I can start using the keyboard. So I actually have a keyboard attached to this one, so I can still, so let me just, there we go. I can still type into this. I can still use voice dictation to enter data into this, but now I have the ability to take handwritten notes within Evernote, and I think that is just a crazy little bit of magic. Now I promised that I would show you where this comes in, because this might be new to some of you. You might not have seen what Scribble is all about, but if you go into the Apple settings, the iOS settings, and within the settings, you go to Apple Pencil. And in Apple Pencil, you should see this new screen. If you don't see this new screen, update your version of iOS. And if you still don't see it, make sure that your language is set to English, because this only works in English. But down here at the bottom, you have to enable Scribble. And this allows you to use the Apple Pencil and convert anything into text in any editable field. So the cool thing about this is it doesn't just work within Evernote. But if I go into any field, let me just open up Safari here. If I just type into Safari and let me start a new, if I put in, start writing in, see? So it's scribble that out because it's super messy. But if I put in .otech, again, my handwriting is terrible, but you see it's recognizing it, and it's putting in the URL. So that happens in every field. So you can do this in search fields, you can do this in text fields, you can do this anywhere you have to enter data using this tool. And you don't have to stay right within the boundaries of the exact boundaries. Sketch kind of, Scribble carries outside of the field of the text box itself. So you don't have to be super precise as you write into any field. It's very cool. I think we can all agree, but it is especially cool when we look at it being used with Evernote. Okay, there are some things that have gone by the wayside within the new version of Evernote 10, and a lot of people have been complaining about some of these things. But amongst the things that have gone are presentation mode, which allowed you to take any note and turn it into a slideshow, which I never used, you never used, nobody's going to miss that. Something called context, which actually I thought was a very, very cool tool. When you went into Google and you did a search, when you turned on context in the premium version of Evernote, and you had it turned on, when you did a Google search, within the web browser, as well as the web search results. Evernote would populate Evernote search results in on that field as well in the same screen. And I always thought that was very creative and very useful. I expect something to come along to replace it, but that was a very cool search function that I'm frankly going to miss myself. Some specialized versions of Evernote have gone bye-bye, including a special SnapScan version of the Evernote, which was hard-coded to work with the scanner, to work with the Fujitsu SnapScan. The Outlook clipper, if you were in Windows, there was a special web clipper for Outlook. That has gone by the wayside. One thing that disturbs me a little bit is the fact that they have now got rid of preferences. And I guess that it's not that big a deal if they don't give us much to do. But within Evernote, let me just go back to the app version. If we go into preferences, there's nothing there anymore. So what do I want to be able to set in preferences? Well, you used to be able to set the size of font that you wanted as your default font and which font you wanted. That's sort of a preference thing. What to do with a new note when you opened it, those kinds of things were preferences. But Evernote has taken those all away from us now. And I probably wouldn't miss it if I didn't know I used to have it, but it's gone now, so we say adios preferences. For me, the thing that jumped out when I saw that they removed it is something called local notebooks. And this was a security feature. This was a security technique that we used often within Evernote. So the challenge with Evernote, as far as dealing with private data, with dealing with personal information or anything that's sensitive, is when it's synced to the cloud, it's there on the cloud, synced in multiple devices, and so theoretically, it's at greater risk of being hacked than we would like to be comfortable with. So Evernote, what they used to do is they used to allow us to create something called a local notebook, which was a notebook that was created just on the device that it was created on, only on that device, and it was not synced to any other service. Consequently, if you had, say, your tax returns, you could store them on your local notebook within Evernote, and it would never be synced to the cloud. And so the only time that it could be at risk is if somebody stole your notebook and was able to hack into your notebook. So there wasn't a cloud version of it that was out there that somebody could theoretically gain access to. They've taken that away, and they've had to take that away because of sync and because of making Evernote work properly across all platforms. I guess there's a technical reason that they had to do it, but it caused me some consternation. Now, in my reading, Evernote has increased the levels of security that they have on the cloud, including encrypting all of the data that we have stored on the cloud, and they recommend that we use two-factor authentication, which is now available for all Evernote accounts. So they're feeling that they have backfilled the security hole that would be having the local notebooks by adding these other layers of high-level web-based security. And they probably are right. They probably are right, but it did make me sit up and take notice. And that's one of the things that you do have to pay attention to. If you've used local notebooks for dealing with more sensitive information, you have to make a decision with the new version of Evernote as you upgrade to it if you want to convert those local notebooks into shared notebooks or if you want to pull that information out of Evernote. They are going to continue to support older versions of Evernote for a period of time that still support local notebooks, and you won't have access to the new features, but who knows how long that's going to last. So that's a big decision point that many of us are going to have to make. And finally, there is one piece of crucial Evernote technology that they did not mess with. Good for you, Evernote, is they've not messed at all with the web clipper, which is, in my mind, the single most valuable tool that Evernote has. The ability to vacuum information from any site you visit and store that information immediately and copy it into Evernote is still there. The Evernote web clipper has not been touched, and I imagine at some point they might even look at improving it in some way. So that's our look at Evernote. Here we see it as the desktop version. We jump across. We see the web-based version is identical in almost every way. If I had a Windows machine running here and I could show you it on Windows, it would look the same. It now looks the same and acts the same across desktop platforms, Windows and Mac. And the iOS version is consistent with on the iPad and iPhone. And the only version that has not yet caught up with it, and the web version is identical as well. The only version that has not yet caught up is the Android version, and we expect that shortly. And we are back. Wow, that's got a lot of questions, April.
There is a lot of questions.
We've got a lot of questions. We're going to have to do some more on Evernote.
We do, but you know what? But in true Dotto Tech community style, lots of people answering different questions.
Yeah,
along the way.
I see some of our good friends are in here. Troy Christmas is here from Task Clone, and some other people who are publishing. I think I've had a chat with productivity, the guy here, Productivity IRL. I've checked out his videos, good stuff. So that's another good source for people. Thanks, guys, for pitching in and helping with some answers. Because I haven't had a chance to dive in and find every feature yet and everything that's missing or been added. But that gives you a good overview. And a lot of people have complained about performance. And I'm going to tell you right off the top, it seems to be snappy as heck for me. Now, I've got a fairly modern, I don't have the newest, but I have the last of the old generation of Mac Minis with a decent amount of memory. And on my iPad Pro, it's fine. It's running great. I hear some people complaining about it on their iPhones, but I'm wondering what version of the iPhone you have. And I'm also wondering whether it was the first time that it ran and it runs more smoothly next time. One of the things about the iOS version of it, and that's one of the things that when they came up with a unified code base, the big challenge they had with that is local storage versus cloud storage. How much they're actually going to put on a limited storage device like an iPhone or a tablet versus what they can leave on your computer hard drive. There's a big difference in the amount of available real estate for them. So those are things that Evernote is going to have to be working through. But this is pain we had to go through. If you like me have literally hundreds of thousands of notes invested in Evernote, we had to get to a unified code base so that we weren't constantly patching and building and retreating and leapfrogging versions. So now they've got a place to grow from, which I find personally very exciting. So many questions here, which we'll get to as many as we can. We've got about a half an hour of time, so I'll answer as many as I can. I don't have answers for everything, but I'll answer as many as I can. But before I do, two things that I'd like to point out. The first is we've got a course called Evernote Made Easy, version 4, which is based on the last version of Evernote, the last legacy version. And we've been having some internal conversations about how that course kind of has weathered the storm. We've pulled it from circulation. We're not promoting it anymore. But looking at Evernote now and looking at what we taught in the class, most of all of the philosophy that we taught in how you use Evernote is still viable. A few features, things like local notebooks, how backups happen, how notes are constructed, the actual anatomy of the note, some of those things have changed. But my basic philosophy that I teach in that course on how we use Evernote remains the same. So what we're considering doing right now is rather than starting from scratch, throwing the course out and redoing it from the beginning, is we're looking at just refreshing it, adding a few extra videos, and just versioning our version 4 of the course, making it version 4.10 of the course. So anybody who's interested, we've got a wait list. Not going to be getting to it before the end of the year. I'm telling you right now, there's no way we're doing it before the end of the year. But if you are interested in an updated version of Evernote Made Easy version 4, anybody who's already purchased the course, worry not, you get the upgrade for free. That's the way that we do the things here at Dotto Tech. But if you are interested in it, April is going to drop a link. Let us know. The more people that tell us they're interested in a refreshed version of the course and they're actually interested in buying it, says, oh, well, we can make some money for it too. It makes it worth our effort. It'll help us make the decision of whether or not and when we are going to do this refresh on the course. But for the meantime, the course is not really mothballed, but it's way down on the priority chain of the things that we talk about. So that's just kind of an update on what's happening with the Evernote Made Easy course that we have. And along with that, our Evernote Quick Start Guide, which has been very popular, teaching people how to get started in Evernote. That's going to require a little bit of a refresh, some additional videos. So we'll be doing all of that at the same time. But as I'm saying, let us know your interest. It just puts you on a list so that when we promote it, we know that we can reach out to you right away and that you're interested in it. It helps us gauge the interest in it. So that's that. And so do I have anything else that I have to do?
You want to mention our patrons again?
Sorry?
Our patrons again?
Oh, just thank our patrons. Thank you so much, patrons, for your support. As I mentioned off the top, Dotto Tech is supported through the generosity of our patrons at Patreon, and we would not be here without you. And if you find this kind of content valuable, then maybe you want to consider becoming one of our patrons as well at patreon.com/DottoTech. There you gain access to all of our perks, including all of these Webinar Wednesday replays. If you have to rush away, if you want to review this video will be available till next Wednesday at the same time. Speaking of next Wednesday coming up here on the big show I got inspired when I was recording this demo yesterday for this, and I got kind of all excited to do. There it is. Talking about the iPad again. I bought my iPad back when we were still able to get on airplanes and travel about the world, and I was looking at it as a notebook replacement, wondering if I could travel with it instead of carrying around a big cumbersome notebook with me. And things have changed. Obviously, we aren't traveling the same way. So how is the iPad fitting into my life now, especially with the new upgrades? And I'm very excited about the new features that you saw when I was showing you the scribble feature. So we're going to revisit the iPad next week. We're going to be talking about, is the iPad a viable notebook replacement, and how is it working? How am I using it day after day, and how is it fitting into my system? So that's going to be next week. So keep your eye on your email as we talk more about the iPad. So many people had questions about when I showed the scribble, and the feature
So
scribble
cool.
only works with the Apple Pencil. And yes, somebody asked if it works with the third-party pencil. If Apple thinks it's an Apple Pencil, if your iPad thinks it's an Apple Pencil, it works. It's not going to work on any iPads or any phones that don't support the pencil. And the new operating system has some phone support on some. I haven't got the newest phone, but on the newer phones as well. So it might be able to be interacted on that. I don't know what's going to happen with Samsung with their notepad or any of the other stylus-based tools at this point. That what I showed you was just simply just for the benefit of us lucky folks that are lucky enough to have the iPad Pro or an iPad which has the Apple stylus, the Apple Pencil. All right, I think we should get to some questions. Indeed, should we not?
Okay, let's do it to it. So,
okay. Patrick Burnell says, "I'm hoping you review the interaction with Rocketbook in your video." No, I didn't. I haven't checked out Rocketbook, so I don't have any thoughts on how Rocketbook is going to fit with this. We did a video a while back on Rocketbook. I really like Rocketbook as a poor man's tablet. It allows you to write all of your notes within the Rocketbook and then take a picture of it. Sorry?
That's a good analogy.
It is. It's like that episode of Parks and Rec when he got his phone taken away and he was using Post-it notes for his iPhone. But it is a beautiful tool, and it's got some really nice. The software has some really nice distribution options for taking your notes, converting them into text, and then sending them to either Evernote or to any other publishing or any other hosting platform that you want to send them in. We'll take a look at it again in the near future. I imagine that very little will have changed. I can't imagine that how you would do with Rocketbook is going to change with the current version. Having said that, I can't say for sure.
Mary Ellen's asking, can Evernote be HIPAA compliant?
Yeah, and I saw that we got some nice comments from the community, and Deb was commenting on it. I don't think so. I think that because of the fact that you can't lock your information down and we can't do individual note encryption, that I don't believe that it is fully HIPAA compliant. But you have to check. You have to check on that notification. Deb shared a resource that talks about it, but I don't believe it is. I am concerned. We always are concerned about the level of security with Evernote. People who take things like take pictures of their passport or store their financial documents in Evernote, it concerns the heck out of me. We recommend you do not do that, and we keep recommending, and I still know people do it an awful lot, and it's not as secure as, they can have the best two-factor authentication and best encryption going, but I think you're always at risk when you're dealing with a venture as big as Evernote. That's as big a target. If you need to store an online version of your passport or your driver's license or your birth certificates or your tax documents, use a tool that's designed for it. Use a tool like LastPass or 1Password. LastPass has a vault where you can store all of that information so you can access it in the future if you need it. Please go that route instead of trying to use Evernote for it, including Evernote as a security device when it really isn't.
Paul's asking, how have they changed tags? They don't stack anymore in desktop for Windows.
Yeah, so the tags I don't know how much they've changed structurally tags. They've incorporated a far easier search metaphor into search to utilize tags within search, whereas before you kind of had to MacGyver it to get access to the tags, but it's all kind of built into the same unified search window. So tags are still a big part of Evernote. I don't know about you, but I've personally moved away from using tags and just rely on Evernote's native search capabilities a lot more and my notebook structure rather than too many tags. And I know that's not going to work for everybody, but I don't suspect that the data structure is going to change with tags. That the way you organize should be the same. It might be slightly visually different, but I can't speak for sure.
Lynn's asking, do they still save all of your files on your Mac hard drive?
I believe that it's all that if you do have local storage, it will store them on your local computer. I'm not positive about where everything lives. I didn't look that much into seeing if there was any differences in it.
All right. Computer's being slow here. So Matt is asking, can I put a PDF into an Evernote? Sorry. I can put a PDF into an Evernote, but what I see is a link to somewhere else. How do I put the document itself into Evernote?
I'd have to play with it. I'm not positive. If you try copying and pasting the document, I'm not sure how you place it. I actually haven't tried that. I'm sure somebody has, so we'll keep your eye on chat and somebody will fill you in on that. But that's the specifics of that I haven't tested.
Can the data file for Evernote be saved via an export?
Yeah. You can always export your data from Evernote. Absolutely, and you export it as an Evernote format, which is I can't remember the exact extension, but you can also export them as HTML documents, and I believe you can also do an export into PDF. Although I will check, I haven't.
And Blake in the chat is saying, did the feature change? It used to be a drag and drop.
I don't think it has changed. I'm looking at export note right now. It's taking a second to load. While I'm doing this, you can get to the next question.
Can you print an Evernote?
Yeah, you can print. Absolutely. Now you're going to be limited with your fonts. It's still exporting as an ENEX file is how it's doing the export. And if I choose a notebook, an entire notebook, let's see what I have as far as export. It doesn't have the export there, so we'll have to use an archive. You have to use the archiving feature, I think. But I think the drag and drop does work for notes for sure. Not too sure about notebooks right now.
What's the best way to scan into Evernote? I use ScanSnap all the time.
Yeah, that's the way I like. ScanSnap is on the smartphone. It's a great tool for scanning, and it's one of the reasons I think people started to use that more and more. And it's one of the reasons that they stopped having the native integration with a tool like the Fujitsu SnapScan. I'm not too sure where Evernote's going with the dedicated scanners, but the person who you follow, who I'm sure has something on that, is Brooks Duncan. If you look up Brooks at Brooks site called Brooks, just look up Brooks Duncan. He stays on top of all of the scanning interface stuff in the scanners. SnapScan. He's at
How many templates are available?
Well, they've got it looked like there's 10 or 12 templates available, but you can create your own. You can take any document that you set up and save it as a template, and then it becomes your own. So an unlimited number of templates.
And can you talk a little bit about the difference between Evernote and Notion, kind of how they're different?
Oh, Notion is really an environment. Evernote's got a fixed structure. You've got your Evernote note, and everything has to fit within that container. Within Notion, you design your own container type. You design what that container looks like, whereas in Evernote, it's that note that it all works within. Notion is far more flexible, but it's far more kind of do-it-yourself. You kind of have to figure out it's more of an environment there's as many different ways to use Notion as there is people out there. Evernote, there's a fair number of ways that people can use Evernote, but everybody pretty much does the same thing. They clip information into Evernote, they store it in Evernote, they structure and organize it and search for it within Evernote, and they retrieve it from Evernote. But it's all kind of in that fixed container structure. And again, if you want to know more about Notion, we've got a great partner of ours, a great friend of ours, Francesco D'Alessio. All of his content on it is fantastic.
You've done a lot of learning this week too, so your brain is tired. All these questions are coming
my brain
at you.
I can barely remember my own name these days right now.
Dudley's asking, I've been afraid to update so far. Heard too many horror stories. I have a consistent font on all my current notes. Will these change if I upgrade, or will I have two different types of notes type fonts in the future.
Yeah, I can understand your reluctance, and the font issue is going to bother some people. It's going to be like it's really going to frustrate them. For me, it doesn't bother me very much, and but I can tell you, I haven't regretted upgrading at this point to it. So I think you know, I'm not too sure why the horror stories are out there. It could be older hardware. It could be that there's been a couple of revs since between when they upgraded and when I did it, but it was pretty straightforward for me. So you know, not saying that it's going to be smooth as anything for you, but it was pretty smooth for me.
We've had a lot of questions about the YouTube video piece. So can you just talk a little bit? Can it be embedded, or you just put the link in and the video will pop up?
Yeah, there's nothing fancy to it. You go to the YouTube URL, you grab the URL from YouTube, just a YouTube URL like the way you would share any YouTube video URL, and you paste it in and it resolves. You see the video and it plays. The question was, will ads play? Yeah, anything that YouTube serves through to that video will play. So if there's an ad, if there's a pre-roll ad, a mid-roll ad, they will all appear. But it plays just like any other embed. So the same way it would do it if you put it in, inserted it in a website. I think that, by the way, it's fired my imagination. We've got a list builder product that we're putting out to support our Gray Wave community. And we're going to be using Evernote to deliver some of the training content in it, because I love being able to create a note, being able to modify it, be able to just share that URL, and now to be able to embed the videos in it and not have to just direct people to YouTube for it. Oh, game changer. I was excited when I showed it to you, and I'm still excited now.
Michael's asking, hey, talking about sharing notes, the new version does not allow you to email a full copy of the note anymore. Question?
I don't believe that's the case. No, I was looking at the share menu. I haven't tested it, but I don't see any differences in the sharing options.
Got it. Deborah's asking, can you share your own templates with others that we could share in the Dottotech community?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you could share it, if you need to share it as a template, but if you just share a note with somebody else, they bring it into their Evernote account, they can then save that note as a template. So yes, it might be a two-step process.
Steve is asking, are you aware of Filterize? It's a great tool that helps keep Evernote better organized.
Yeah, there's a couple of good tools that are plug-in, including Troy Christmas, who's here a lot with his task clone, which turns Evernote into a task planner or a task tool. I have not played with Filterize. I remember looking at it over a year ago now, but I can't remember exactly what it did. So you've tweaked me and reminded me I'll have a look again.
VB is asking, is it possible to share a note with people who don't have Evernote on their device?
Yeah, because an Evernote note is just simply a web URL. It's a web page. And so it will resolve. They don't have to have Evernote. They can view it in a browser. That's one of the real strengths of it.
Kind of a follow-up to the sharing a note via email. Can you do it on your iPad?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That sharing of notes with Evernote is, in my mind, still one of the greatest untapped resources of Evernote, is using it as a publishing platform. It really works well. When we delivered our first course on Evernote Made Easy, back 7 years ago, we delivered the entire course in Evernote. We used Evernote as a learning management tool, where every day you received a new email, which was a linked note that had the lesson on the note. And it worked brilliantly. And it was such a great distribution platform. And if I needed to make a change, I just made the change in the original note, and everybody, whenever they visited the note, it changed. It's a really, really underutilized asset as far as I'm concerned.
Greg is asking, does the writing OCR?
Yes, it does. The writing converts into text automatically. You saw it happening. That was happening. That was converting to OCR on the fly. That's the scribble. And apparently they've really upgraded the OCR capabilities. Evernote's always had wonderful OCR capabilities. If you take a picture of a sign, if you take a picture of a page, it'll convert it into editable text, to the point where you can do searches based on, like, if there's a store sign and a picture that you've taken and the picture's in Evernote, when you do a search, it'll parse out the text and it will find the picture based on the text which is in the picture. And from what I understand, they've even upgraded that and made it more robust.
All right. Don is asking, does Scribble work on your iPhone?
I don't. I think it only on the newest iPhones that support. There's. I think there's one iPhone now that supports the Apple Pencil. I haven't paid that close attention to it, but I think that'll be the case. It's tied to the Apple Pencil at this point.
All right. Masad is asking, what happened to the sync button for manually syncing? Also,
I
preference
can't
setting removed from
find
the
it.
computer version.
Yeah, I was looking for it. I don't know whether the sync is now real time, happening all the time, persistent, but I noticed that. It's something I'm going to look into. Don't know.
Glenda's asking, could I do the same sort of inserting handwriting using my desktop Evernote plus Wacom tablet?
The Wacom tablet? I don't know. You could certainly use the sketch function that's built into Evernote, which is their kind of their notepad for handwriting tool app. So that will work. I don't know if it'll do the conversion to OCR though. I doubt it will.
Here's follow-up from Michael. I confirm only a link appears in my email, no option to share the full note as before. So I know you said you hadn't tested that. So
you would see, I'm a little bit confused. If the link is there, then you have access to the full note. So you're saying that the full note would appear in the email, that it would resolve in the email? If that's the case, it could be a slightly different view option, but you still have the option to share the note. They just have to click on it and then it launches it in their browser as opposed to resolving within the email body, which makes sense to me. I could see how that could be an issue.
All right. I'm just going, this chat's moving really fast, guys.
It is.
I'm trying to catch up with
people with us.
I'm trying to catch up
A
with
ridiculous number of people.
If you're sharing, do you still need to be concerned about security information? Sharon's asking.
Well, whatever note you're sharing is not secure anymore because somebody has a link to be able to view it, and they could share that link with somebody else. Although you could shut down, I think that you can also just share it with individuals. You can set up some privacy settings. But yeah, anytime you open it up to somebody else, you've opened another opportunity for something to go sideways. I don't think it's a big concern. It's a huge concern. But again, if it's sensitive information, if it's something that you want to retain privacy with, I wouldn't be sharing it in Evernote.
All right. Is the feature of searching for terms inside of a PDF, not knowing which PDF the term is in, still in version 10?
I'm not positive. That was a paid version. That was a page thing to be able to search, a paid feature, being able to search within PDFs. And I imagine it still will be, but I'm not positive.
Britannia is asking, can you send a document to a friend or a teacher?
Yep, easily.
All right.
It's in the sharing menu.
Okay, Andrew's asking, if you are not an Evernote user currently, how is this different from Apple's Notes in determining why Evernote versus something else? How would you make the decision? Andy from Florida.
Well, that's a really good question. Apple's Notes has stepped up its game pretty much big time. If you live in the Apple ecosystem, here's the way that I would approach it. And unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of kind of making your own decision and kind of figuring out your own way. But if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you like living with all things Apple, you use Apple's iCloud, you're happy with Apple Calendar and Apple's email, then it makes profound sense to really try and see if you can make Apple's Notes work for you, and it will do everything you want. And I imagine it could well be. So that would be what I would look at. Similarly, if you're in the Google ecosystem, even though Google Tasks in Google's Notepad, Google Notes is not as powerful in any way, it's still pretty darn useful. And it can work pretty well for you if you decide to go in that direction. Those of us who use Evernote, so many of us started 5, 8, 10 years ago using Evernote, and we have a tremendous amount of equity invested in our Evernote notes. And that information is not easy for us to move out. And the habits that we have for managing it aren't going to change. We're used to using Evernote for these things. So for us, it's almost it's habit. It's almost religion, because we've invested so much in it over the years. So we're vested in Evernote's success. And it's hard for us to step away and, say, look at another tool and say, oh, that's going to be just as good or better. So if I was just starting out, if you like, one of the beauties of Evernote is how it works across all platforms in Windows, Mac, Android, although the Android version it hasn't caught up. That's the one thing they haven't caught up with yet. But so that cross-platform functionality is wonderful. If you're never going to be using a Windows machine or an Android phone,
Apple Notes, from what I hear, is stepping up their game. But there are going to be some features, and I can't off the top of my head say which ones because I haven't used Apple Notes recently. But you will definitely find some good reviews that will compare. But if you like what you see in Evernote, chances are you'll like what you can do in Apple Notes as well.
All right. Grail Magazine. Hey, Paula, what is the best scanning app?
On the phone, I don't know what's best because there's like 8,000 of them, and we can't do a concise thing. But many people here, and myself included, are huge fans of Scannable, which it integrates brilliantly with Evernote. That's on the phone, Scannable. So that's the one that I recommend. As far as scanning apps for desktop scanners or other scanners, use the native one that's built into the scanner. And there are some other good ones as well that you beyond Scannable, but I like Scannable, and it's good. Is something else better? Maybe.
Gareth is asking, if you share a note with someone, can they get access to your other notes?
No.
Let's see. So, so can we have a compact view like before in the note list on the left?
Yeah, I think all of the view options down the center column, I didn't play with them too much, but I did notice them within the Windows, within the browser version, they were all there. So yeah, you can still choose to see snippets or summary notes or a list of notes.
Jay is saying you used to love the Evernote camera. Do you still?
I think so. I haven't used it. I didn't use it preparing for this, but I think the Evernote camera is, yeah. I'm sure that they haven't. I'm sure they wouldn't have made it worse. And we would have heard something if they had.
Is there a workaround for having lost Outlook Clipper?
I don't know what the best workaround is going to be, but I imagine there is. If you have you could send an email to Evernote. You could use the Evernote email functionality for it. If you are on the desktop and you're using Outlook in the browser as opposed to in the native app window, you can use the Evernote web clipper. That's how I do it in Gmail often, is because I use Gmail as my email client. If I need to clip something into Evernote, I will quite often just use the Evernote web clipper because I'm in the browser and it works.
So Michael, and I don't know, this sounds like a lot to me, but Michael's proud to be with Evernote since May 2008 and now has over 27,650 notes. It's a lot of notes.
2008.
No, 27,000.
27,000 notes. And he's been a member since 2008?
Yes. It's like a power user.
Here. When did I start my subscription? I'm just over 10 years. Oh, he's earlier than me. I joined in 2011. So you win, sir. Well played.
We should have an elephant award, right?
I'm coming up to my 10th anniversary. You're coming up to your 13th, 14th. Wow.
Dan confirmed the Evernote camera is the same.
Good. Thank you, Dan.
Does Evernote link the Teams as well?
There's some changes there. They did some changes to the Evernote work tool, and I'm not positive what they did. I don't know. But something's firing off saying they did some changes there, but I can't remember what it is.
So we have 2013 Dudley. PG Adams is 2009 using Evernote.
Studley. Oh, gee. 2013. Battlefield, you're just a newbie.
When was a Keynote, speaking of Evernote, their platform, your choice? What else compared to other note apps? When was a Keynote, speaking of Evernote? Keynote. So I'm not really sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Gosh, Matt, we have July 2008. We have T New Dad 2008, 2011.
Troy is in 2011. Joe Carr is 2009. This is great stuff.
I feel you blushing, Dudley.
Battlefield. I called him a newbie. He goes, shucks.
No, you call him a stud.
You know who that is? That's he's one of the Grey Wave. That's from the UK.
I know who Dudley is.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. 2011, 2008.
Oh, Dave. 2008. Wow.
So, David, we must have made you go check, right? You had no idea. Wow. All right. So, I just remembered that I used Evernote Audio Note a lot on the Android when I'm walking around. So, is it still possible in Evernote 10?
I believe so. I don't believe that they've changed the audio note functionality. And if anything, they will have made it more robust.
All
I'm
right.
just taking a look right now. Now, Android is the ugly stepchild right now, or the ugly stepsister, or the terrible stepmother. Android, they haven't updated the code base. And so that's coming. And I know it's high on their list of priorities, and they're going to do it soon, but you are the one. So I'm looking here. Yeah, in the Mac, in the iOS, it's still record an audio note. So that's still there as a basic function. But you're still going to be caught up. You're going to be behind right now in Android.
We have a lot of 2008.
Yeah, look at that. These people know more about it. Why are they listening to me? They probably know more about it than I do.
Robin's asking, why can't Evernote allow more subfolders?
Okay, Evernote's philosophy is very flat, and it hasn't ever changed. Evernote's philosophy is that we don't build a hierarchical structure of notes, but instead we have groups of notebook stacks, notebooks, and notes. They don't want this massive hierarchical structure because they don't want you visually searching for things. They want you using search. They want you to using tags or notebooks in order to classify your documents and then to use search. So that's the reason is that hierarchical structure. That's old school. That's the way that computers used to work. That's based on file cabinets and visually searching for things. And Evernote doesn't want you doing that because that is not productive.
All right. I think that is a wrap. We are at the top of the hour.
This was fun, guys. I hope that some of you have let me know if you're interested in us refreshing the course there. We'll have to pick up some stuff and do some more stuff on Evernote. Obviously, the amount of interest that is expressed here is makes me open my eyes. So thanks so much for all the support. And again, with this community, it is just so amazing seeing questions coming and seeing people who have intimate knowledge answering the questions as we go. It just warms my heart. It's just the Dottotech. And there's nary, who does a live stream with 800 people and nobody's being a jackass on it?
No,
really?
Actually, I didn't have to block anybody today.
I know. That's just, you guys are ridiculous.
Okay,
it's
but
so
don't
good.
start getting fresh on us now.
Sorry? Now they're going to
before.
get up there. Now they're going to start talking smack with Steve.
Smack, yeah.
All right. Give me the shot. For those of you that aren't going to join us next week, if you're going to join us next week for the iPad, fantastic. For all of our friends in the States, happy Thanksgiving. And let's hope that this Thanksgiving gives you that next year's something to give more thanks for than the last year has been for all of us. So we'll be thinking of you if we don't see you before next week, and enjoy and stay safe, one and all. April, you was awesome. This replay will be available for a week, folks. Anybody who, if you, we really don't have too many notes to send out, but we will send out a follow-up email once we're said and done. Keep your eye on next week's, and thanks so much for coming out.
Yeah, you guys
April,
are great. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Well done.
Well,
Till next time, guys. Have fun storming.